What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Ring the Bell Show presented by SeatGeek. I am Christy Francesco, and yes, second time this week. I know I promised everybody we wouldn't do this until April with a 2 times a week show, but this is a special occasion. I've been chasing this guy down for a while now. He's got time finally to talk, and I love it. From 97.5, the Fanatic, my good buddy for one of my, literally probably my mentor for over 10 years now, a lot longer than he would probably want to admit. Mr. Kevin Cooney. Kevin, what's going on, man? How are you?
You call me old?
I would never say that.
Yeah, I'll call myself old. So thank you, Chris. It's good to be on here. And yeah, it's a rare weekend where there's not chaos breaking out all around. So
I completely understand. During the season, we do these things on Sunday nights because I feel like that's the only part of the week for about an hour where I have nothing happening, no noise in the house. The kids are sleeping. We're good.
And in this town, after this week, probably Sundays are going to be free for a lot of people. So
I was actually going to start this off because you are wearing an Eagles shirt.
Yeah.
This is a Phillies
I'm not
show.
a trader like you.
How dare you on my program?
All right. If we're going to have real confessions here,
that's fine.
I have a Joe Montana jersey up in my upstairs.
I would love to have a Joe Montana jersey.
A Mitchell and Ness Joe Montana jersey because Joe Montana was one of my first sports heroes.
That's incredible. That's really cool.
And then his organization totally submarined him, went for Steve Young, and I've hated the 49ers since. But anyway, go ahead.
I understand. That was my guy growing with Steve Young, and so I understand your aspect of it. So let me ask you, I know it's a Philly show, but I just want to get this obviously out of the way, but it's a big topic. AJ Brown's not playing Monday night. What are your expectations, man, for this game? What do you see happen? Do you honestly think the season ends Monday night?
I'll give Reuben Frank, our old buddy, a lot of credit. He brought up a list of quarterbacks that the Eagles have lost to in the playoffs since 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them but one has won a Super Bowl. We're talking Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady twice, Drew Brees 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
There's one or two others in there that I'm forgetting. The only one that hasn't was Tony Romo. Now, in my first blush, it's like, okay, Baker Mayfield's not beating you.
Yeah.
But then I realized you have no pass rush, your defense is awful, and this team has this vibe of let's just get it over with.
You're not wrong.
And it you know, if we're going to compare it to the Phillies, I said this on radio today, and I got a couple goofy looks. Like the scarring that will happen if it is over this week, and honestly, even if it's over next Sunday in Dallas, let's assume, which is the worst case scenario. It's one thing if you go to Frisco and lose and all that.
Yeah.
It will be a scar like the 64 Phillies was on the psyche of this city, because you'll never be able to really trust anything again. Because you will feel so let down. And that's harsh. It'll probably result in a coaching change anyway. But yeah, that's where I think it is. I deep down, I think they'll probably win Monday night, but I'm certainly not confident.
Big Teddy Bear 1100. Hello. Thank you for joining us. I am doing just fine. Thank you for asking.
I found Peacock, so I'm good.
So you truly think, and this has been the topic of discussion all week on radio and nationally as well, you think if they lose this game, Nick Sirianni, after what he's done so far, you truly think there's a change coming?
When the national guys start saying it, especially with the Eagles, who tend to love playing in the national writer realm, that's sign one. Here's sign two, Chris. If you bring Sirianni back, but you fire both coordinators, how do you get anybody to sign in on this? Like, how do you get anybody of value to come in here with a coach that is entering the 4th year of his 5th-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows that if they get off to a 1-4 start, is likely going to be out of a job.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there would have to be a realization point. Now, I didn't believe 2 weeks ago it would happen, but I also didn't believe they lose to the Cardinals and the Giants. So,
and not just lose to the Giants, you were embarrassed by the Giants,
right? And you get your number 1 wide receiver and your starting quarterback hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, there has to be a scapegoat. When something like this happens, there's a scapegoat.
Always.
In all sports. And, there's precedent for a guy going to a Super Bowl and then getting fired the next year, and that's John Fox with Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Do I think it could happen? I think anything's on the table at this point beyond if you get to a championship game. If you get to the championship game, then he's going to be safe. Because even that first playoff appearance back in 21 is kind of fraudulent because it was in that seven era, 7-team era. You're the 7 seed, it's 9 and 8.
Yeah.
And you were blown out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't. I don't think Jeff Lurie's going to get fooled by that. Let's put it that way.
Interesting. Well, it's going to be a lot to see how this plays out, regardless of Monday.
Soap opera.
Yes. So let's talk Phillies. So
Yeah.
we just did a show a couple nights ago, talk about the offseason. Guys like Blake Snell are still out there. Hader's still out there. We've all got the feeling that the Phillies aren't going to touch any of those guys. It seems like it's going to be more of depth pieces, which I'm okay with. And I wanted to get you on here because I value your opinion on the Phillies pretty much more than anybody. And I look at it this way. This was a 90-win baseball team who, oddly enough, had Trey Turner playing the worst baseball of his career for the majority of it.
No,
you
Harper
miss
for 2 months.
You miss Harper for 30 games, and his career, he's like a 5 or 6 WAR player. So that could put you at a 96-win team if he's there the whole year. Maybe staying put this offseason, not spending all of this cash like the Dodgers forced themselves to. Maybe that was the best avenue to go down. What's been your thoughts on Dave Dombrowski and how he's handled this offseason?
Well, his biggest move was signing a guy who was already in-house, and Aaron Nola. And look, I'm a Nola critic, and you and I have talked about it in the past.
Yep.
That deal doesn't look bad right now.
Mm-mm.
And, you want to talk about the Yamamoto deal, that's fine. He hasn't pitched in the majors.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's going to translate or not, I don't know. He's got talent, but you see, I think they were kind of in a strange way boxed in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a lot of salaries that are in that middle zone. What I mean by that is, look, you're going to try to re-sign Wheeler. Sorry, I'm adjusting the camera. You're trying to re-sign Wheeler, and lock him in longer term beyond this year. I don't know if Josh Hader is a great investment. I don't know how they view the bullpen at this point. I think they feel they have bullpen depth. I think they actually like the way that Topper uses his bullpen of mixing and matching as opposed to having the one steady guy.
Yeah.
I think honestly, when they got into the one steady guy mentality as our, pardon the pun, ace in the hole, with Kimbrel in the playoffs, they got in trouble. Even using him in the 8th inning and stuff, they were using that for situational as, he's our best guy, and it didn't happen that way.
No.
I would like to see some outfield depth.
Yes.
I think they will bring in somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't bringing anybody in for the infield.
Nope.
You're not bringing a catcher in. Like, I'm selfish. I probably would have liked another bullpen catcher or a backup catcher.
Naturally, for sure. I agree.
The Stubbs.
And the other reason why I think Stubbs might be staying. Yeah, and the reason I think Stubbs is staying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is and Nola really likes pitching to him.
He does. I think it's also a clubhouse thing. I think
For
he's
sure.
liked in that clubhouse, and I think that was. I will agree with, and I talked to somebody who knows the game pretty well and we were talking not off record, but on background, so I don't want to give his name.
That's fine.
He goes, the one thing he kind of wanted them to get this offseason that they didn't was a guy who was a bit of I'll use the term, the red ass. The guy who doesn't mind coming in and ruffling feathers and calling people out, and because he feels like there's too much of a go along to get along mentality.
I see.
That it's almost like a boy squire in a way.
See that.
And that, hey, we're all friends and all. He goes, there are times when you have to be able to call somebody out, to call out a Turner, to call out a Castellanos, all that. And he didn't think there was anybody in that locker room that could do it.
Interesting.
And do I agree with that? I'm not there every day, but I kind of got that sense that they are a very tight-knit group, and I don't know if there's anybody who necessarily fits that mold. And if you're not going to fit that mold, then you better be perfect. And a sense of everybody being like self-policing. And there were some times, I think, when you saw against the Diamondbacks where the self-policing was gone. And it's not Harper's personality to do it. I think Schwarber's the guy who may be the closest on this group who could do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
And I don't know if he's necessarily
a rah-rah guy.
No. Yeah. I mean, so not even a rah-rah guy, a guy who's going to, be tough and be, getting somebody's getting somebody's face
for sure
when things aren't going well. And they don't have that. And that might be something that as you get closer to the deadline, when you see the way your clubhouse is, to see if one develops, and two, if that's somebody you have to go get.
That's interesting. And, speaking of the deadline, when we were talking a couple days ago on our weekly show, we've been toying around this, myself and my co-host Jason. We've been toying with this, and maybe we've formulated this in our brain as to, all right, well, Dombrowski's not doing anything significant in the free agency this offseason, except for signing Nola, of course. But maybe he's preparing himself for a big trade like towards the deadline, to where he doesn't have to pay someone a bunch of money. We were looking at names like Shane Bieber, Corbin Burns. That could be the route that they go come July. Do you think that might be in their head? Is, look, our team looks really good on paper now. Didn't want to go out and give, Blake Snell $25 to $28 million a year. He's going to cost more than Nola, I'm guessing.
It's just questions about whether Blake Snell can get into the 6th and 7th inning.
I agree with you. I always tell people, please look at his baseball reference. No, the 2 Cy Young years, although wonderful, he won the Cy Young, they're outliers.
He was a 5 2/3 inning pitcher.
Exactly.
I'm not criticizing Blake Snell,
right?
But I know there are some people in the game who you're not necessarily going to give $40 million a year to a guy like that. I mean, you're going to find somebody like the Yankees who are going to get desperate and do that. Like, to me, we talked about Hader. I'm amazed that the Dodgers haven't gone and got Hader.
Great point.
I mean, if you're looking at building, or even, to be honest, the Braves a little bit, if you're looking at a team that has had past playoff disappointment, and part of their disappointment is their bullpen has fallen apart, well, Hader seems like the guy you go for. So why aren't they? And that's where I have some serious questions about, when we look at the grand scheme of things. I think having that guy, remember when the Phillies got Papelbon in 12?
Absolutely.
And we realized that the Phillies were doing it the wrong way. It was great to have that stud at the end. But if you had nothing leading up to him, it didn't matter.
Right.
Josh Hader's, to me, from that era.
Yeah.
And if that's from that era, then he's not going to get the money. So if he eventually, look, I don't think the Phillies are getting him, but he's someone I would keep an eye on to see if the market continues to backslide.
For sure.
No, Do I think Dombrowski, to answer your I'm going long way around here as I
It's
have
okay.
I have a squeaky toy in the background from
It's
my
all right.
puppy. I would say they will make a move at the deadline.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be in the Burns.
Okay.
I don't,
So
because
not like a mega deal is what I'm saying.
yeah, because I also think they don't mind protecting their minor league assets. And I know
Okay.
that's contrary to what we all kind of believe.
Yeah, with him for sure.
Yeah, but I also think they feel like they have enough coming up soon that they don't have to panic.
It's a good point. And we might see some of those guys this year.
We could.
McGarry, Abel, it's a possibility.
I think we would see Abel.
We would definitely probably see Abel. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
even if he's fifth starter,
Mhm.
coming up to relieve an injured guy kind of material at this point.
Mhm. So like I brought up a little bit in my very first question to you from a Philly standpoint, that looking at 2024, we're tomorrow, I think, is officially a month before pitchers and catchers. When you look at this team, Kevin, on paper, and we talked about it, Turner just shockingly terrible for 4 months, and you missed Harper all that time. Do you believe this 2024 team, as it stands, if they're all healthy, this is a 95 to 100 win team on paper? I mean, am I too much of a homer in thinking that? I mean, I can be super critical on the Phillies, and I get yelled at for it all the time. But as I'm remaining optimistic that you have a 100% Harper full strength starting in April. You have Trey Turner, I would assume, will not. I have to assume that was an outlier. What happened in the beginning of last season through the middle, through August. If those two are on par, man, like they're better than 90 wins.
Okay, but I'll also look at their personality
Mm-hmm.
as a group. And I think, Chris, I almost hate saying it this way,
Mm-hmm.
but and I joked with John Kincaid at the station the one day I was filling in. 90, 95, 100, whatever it is, it doesn't matter anymore.
You're right. You're right.
I mean,
You're right.
you hate saying it that way, but the baseball we grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
where wow, you're a 98, 99 win team, and you're or 102 win team,
Mm-hmm.
means a lot of ways. It's just as likely you're going to get bounced as you are
Yeah.
to move on. So I think what the Phillies have done, and the Phillies have shown the last couple of years, and look, Arizona did it, Texas did it.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the 4 World Series participants in the last 2 years, 3 of them have come through the wild card.
Yep.
And none of them were, quote, division winners. Okay. So if that's 3 of the 4, and Houston obviously won the division. I shouldn't say that, but, so in that case, I would say, I think the Phillies have kind of gone to like you would have in the NHL or the NBA, or maybe even, I don't know if the NFL is right, because I think you still values if you end up being a top seed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Of get me to the tournament.
Yeah.
Let me position myself for the short series and see what we can do. And I think the Phillies are in that mode. So yeah, I think it's what's the number we're going to need to get to the playoffs.
Right. Okay. All right. I see that.
And maybe even getting those home games in the first round, which last year was 90. If the Phillies get they should be on talent 93, 95 wins in there. But this team's talent has just, there are times it just kind of ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And they're not as good on paper as the Braves or the Dodgers.
No. Mm-mm.
But give me another team besides those two that's on their level. And I don't see that right now.
I don't see it. Nope.
The Mets are not in the National League. The Mets are not at that level.
Milwaukee?
Maybe. Milwaukee's going to take a step back.
I think so too. Yeah.
Especially if they end up trading Burns.
Yep.
You want to give me Chicago, maybe?
Possible. That's not bad.
I mean, Chicago, I would think right now would be the favorite to win the West or the Central.
Especially if they find a way to re-sign Bellinger.
San Diego's in a nightmare scenario.
Yes, they are.
San Francisco looks like they're in a rebuild. You want to tell me
Mhm.
Arizona is going to do it again?
I don't think so.
They're a wild card team. They're probably in the same boat as the Phillies. I mean,
Mhm.
you have decent pitching. You have Corbin.
Yep.
You have Corbin Carroll. Excuse me.
Yep.
So yeah, there's some pieces there, but they kind of just got on that magic carpet ride in
For sure.
in October. So I'm not. The only thing I worry about with the Phillies is, and I'll tie this into what happened with the Eagles. The scarring. Like, is there a scar that's left over? Is that swagger they had
Mhm.
there or not?
Yeah.
That's the one unknown. And I
Yeah,
don't know if
good
we'll
point.
find out until we get to Clearwater. Well, until
Mhm.
they get to Clearwater.
Right.
If it's there.
Mhm.
Because there's a pretty good chance that has some residue left over from what happened in October.
It was the worst couple days of my life. I mean, it's so hard to even think about Game 6
But
and Game 7.
why were people surprised?
I mean, it's basically what you and I just talked about. I mean, it was the Diamondbacks, and you had them. You're playing at home where you're basically unbeatable in a way. But again, people can look back when they lost Game 6. I did the post game show, and I said, just prepare because the series is over. They're not going to win Game 7. Once they lost at home,
actually pitched fairly well.
Yeah, and once you lose that Game 6 at home, you're no longer you're no longer the big bully in the yard anymore. Now you're beatable, and now that packed house of 47,000 doesn't mean anything to the Diamondbacks.
All right, we always look at the end result.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, Game 6 and 7.
Mhm.
That series lost in Game 3 and 4.
I think you're looking back. You're right. Yeah.
Okay. Just like if you want to go back to 2011, that series is not lost on Carpenter Halladay 1-0. That series was lost in Game 2 when Cliff Lee blows the 4-0 lead.
Hands down.
If you want to look at 2010, that series was lost in Game 4 when Charlie has an awful managing night, and he, Bumgarner shuts him down, and he ends up going, and the rotation gets screwed up and all that.
Yep.
Those type of games are the ones that blow you serious. It's not always the last two.
Yeah, it's what got you to that point.
It's what got you to that point.
Yep.
And so I kind of view this whole Phillies thing as they were flirting with dynamite for a long time in that postseason. Because they relied so much on the home run.
Yeah.
And in October, that flips off like that.
Absolutely. You got to manufacture runs in the postseason.
And they didn't do it. Now, the one big weakness that I think prevents them from getting to the 100-win total that you're talking about and all that is just way too many strikeouts.
Yeah.
And you're going to go into these prolonged funks. And say what you want about the Braves, they're not going to do that.
No.
Acuna and Olsen and all those guys are not going to get in those type of deep ravines.
No.
Basically.
It's a powerhouse, man.
And so if that's the case, I don't know, that this lineup, that's why I say this lineup is constructed to get to a playoff, to have burst in playoffs. It's either going to be fireworks or the Hindenburg. It's just one or another. It's not
Right.
It's not set up to be, we're going to win a lot of 4-3 games. It's not.
No.
You're either going to score 10 or you're going to score 1.
Yeah. That was the season. That was 2023. Hands agreed.
That was 22 as well.
Yeah.
You really want to look at it.
Yeah, it was all or nothing. All or nothing. And it's going to be that way again. And I'll ask you last couple questions here. I know you're busy. So
No, take your time.
How long do you think the Phillies into 2024, and I mean the brass, maybe even Topper, because he did it a few times with Castellanos. How long do they tolerate that? That, I mean, you talk about a roller coaster of a player. Nick Castellanos is just that. I mean, part of me is surprised. I'm guessing that with that contract, that's a hard one to move.
Yeah, you can't move him right now.
That's the thing. Do you think?
Because you still have 3 seasons.
Yeah. So how long do you think they put up with that? I mean, I don't see that changing where it's just, he'll have a great May and then June, July, August, he's hitting 220. I mean, and like he doesn't look like the guy with the greatest body language or attitude either.
I'm not going to go that far. But how long will they tolerate it? They don't have any other option.
Yeah,
I mean, if there was an option, we joked about I will say this. I know that people right now, I know the Angels have said that there's nothing on Trout.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Trout has made it known to his friends he wants to stay in LA and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But the Angels are going to stink.
It's going to be awful. Yeah.
And especially if Rendon doesn't turn around. And look, Ron Washington's really good at what he does, and they could be slightly better than everybody expects. But I'm not counting on that, at least this year.
Agree.
So if you're at the trade deadline, let's play it out. If you're at the trade deadline, you're not totally sold on your center field area.
Okay.
You think Marsh or Rojas would be better as a corner.
Yeah.
Or you would feel more comfortable putting Harper back in right and opening up your D. You already have it. Or I'm sorry, putting Harper first, pulling Castellanos out of right, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Would you then try to trade Castellanos as part of a package, basically to offset some of the salary from Trout?
Yeah.
Do I think it's likely to happen? No.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't surprise me if we get to the deadline and Trout's name's out there at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting and to think about. But, to even broach that subject, I think, again, the Angels would have to – I'm assuming you're also betting on the Angels regardless of taking on the majority of the salary of –
they'll want your top prospects.
And then you'd have to assume part of that deal is the Angels still are going to have to take on some of Trout's remaining contract. Because what's he owe? 250 or 265 million?
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe they cover 100 million of that, 120. I mean,
I would think 50. I would think 50 to 100.
50 to 100. Okay. I mean, look, it ain't my money. So, I think it's something
the only
I would
danger
think about
is if the Dodgers want them, which the Dodgers have indicated. They would like to put Trout, or the rumors are. God knows this offseason with rumors has been weird.
Yes, it has.
I'm waiting for the Ohtani plane to Toronto to ever land.
He's in a private jet with Arson Judge.
Yeah, he's gonna. He disappeared over Area 51, and
he did.
Between Toronto and Orange County is Area 51. So
right, see,
yeah, it's possible. And he got switched from a guy from from Shark Tank. Anyway, poor Morosi. Anyway,
he's a good guy.
He is a good guy. He just you can't do that.
That was, bad. Yes.
Look, I think somewhere along the line here, Mike Trout's going to get traded. Mm-hmm. Because the one thing missing from his resume is a ring.
Or a divisional playoff round. Like just a play.
No, he played in the divisional round.
Did he? I thought he only played. I thought he played.
No, it was he was in the best of 5. Was
he? Wow. I have to. Yeah. All right, I'll go find that.
Kansas City.
That's right. You're right. Okay, I remember now.
Then Kansas City went and beat Baltimore.
No. Sure that stung.
Yeah. By the way, if Philly fans are frustrated about how slow their offseason has been, I advise them to look 90 miles to the south for a team that won 101 games, got
Yep.
swept out of the playoffs, and who has spent their has a ton of money available to him, and who has not done squat.
But they've also proven that they can just bring anybody they want up from that farm system when they're going to produce. That farm system they've got is special. I mean, the players they've got.
It is, but you can't live on farm system.
You can't. No. I'm actually surprised Baltimore hasn't gone after like Cody Bellinger to bring that guy into that lineup.
I think they're looking for the discount bin.
Hey, the longer this goes, you might.
Given their lease issues and all that, and everything with Camden Yards, that the uncertainty, maybe that's the right way to go right now.
Maybe.
But you're also in a division where the Yankees are desperate.
Mm-hmm.
The Blue Jays are pretty desperate.
Yeah.
And Tampa still has, you want to talk about the best farm system in the game? That's the best farm system in the game.
And the scouts they got in that on payroll down there.
I mean, so at that case, like I don't, I don't have anything I think Philly fans should complain about. Is it a slow off season? Yes, but you're not going to have fireworks every off season.
I agree. I've been completely okay with this offseason. I have co-hosts who literally are putting Kohler, Dombrowski over the fire for not just getting Blake Snell for the sake of signing Blake Snell.
Yeah, when they used to sign people just for the sake of signing people, it's like 2014 when you went and got Delman Young and AJ Burnett. Was that a good idea either?
No.
Let's be real here. I mean, they're up against the luxury tax. They're probably over it at this point. I'd rather see whatever room I have for an addition at the deadline once you kind of know what your needs are.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Hall of Fame general manager or a Hall of Fame president of baseball ops.
Yep.
Why am I doubting him at this point when he has turned a franchise that had complete dysfunction
to a World Series contenders? Yeah,
into a legitimate contender that you can say is probably the third best team in the National League. And the two in front of them have had serious playoff issues the last couple of years.
Yeah.
One can't win a World Series if it's not in a bubble.
Right.
And the other is in your division and you beat them twice in head-to-head matchups in the postseason. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really bitch yet.
No.
Let me see you miss the playoffs, then I'll bitch.
Right. I'm going to clip that.
I mean, and I'm not Mr. Everything's always positive with this organization. No, I hate the way they strike out. I hate that they do grow attached to some of their guys way too much.
Yep.
We see a little bit of a change in that. I mean, Noah, I get why you re-signed.
Yeah.
I'm not totally in love with how it happened.
Yeah.
I would have maybe walked away.
I mean, he kind of gave you a little bit of a discount.
But yeah, I couldn't argue with the discount.
Yeah, that's it. And Kevin, I honestly thought he was
going to get. Is basically
exactly. I honestly thought that number was going to be 27, 28 million a year, and I would have had an absolute hissy fit if it was when it came back at 24. I said
at 7 million per.
Yeah. I was all right. When that number doesn't say 28 and it said 24 per year, I was okay.
And I understood. I don't mind giving the extra couple years. I know some people bitch when contracts are too long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind giving the extra couple years.
Yeah.
Because you'll make enough revenue that'll make it up.
Yeah, of course.
And the sports structure. I will say, and I think, Chris, this is one thing that we should look at moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of teams out there. When we talk about the deadline and everything, there's going to be a lot of teams who, because of their regional television situations, are going to have to move good players because they're not going to be able to afford them because they've kind of overextended thinking that money was always going to be there from Bally's or whatever.
Yes. That's a big
And
deal going on right
and
now.
it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And say what you want about NBC Sports Philadelphia, and I know there's people who complain around here. It's not going anywhere
Not a chance.
because if it goes somewhere, then the people who like me who still have cable boxes are probably going to throw them out the window.
Yep.
So if that's the case, the Phillies are in a better situation than most. And so they can go pick up everybody else's, they can go scavenger hunting at the deadline and pick up on a salary dump from a lot of other teams.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. And from a broad perspective, that was, looking at the situation.
No other sport is in as big a trouble with that as baseball.
The only other one I could think of is the NHL, because they have an issue gaining, popularity at all. And the fact that some of these teams in their own cities can't even get seen because of blackouts.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
But also the NHL has an audience that's more conducive to streaming.
That's correct. That's a good point as well. But yeah, baseball, they face the biggest struggle with that. Absolutely agree. I mean, you've heard, Mike Trout has said it, and Bryce Harper has said how we in this league is, makes $9 to $11 billion of revenue a year, and there's still blackouts for people to watch their own, and even in their own cities. Like you can't,
but
Bryce Harper said,
it's also an older audience.
Yeah. Yep.
You saw, I don't know how much you've been following this, and we're joking on Saturday night about Peacock having the NFL.
Yeah.
Peacock has dropped their Sunday baseball game.
I heard.
The Apple thing has been kind of mixed.
Yeah.
And while MLB.com or MLB.TV has been good for the diehard fan, you got to remember that, those people who love baseball are mainly older.
Yeah.
And who are more likely to, I got it with my extra innings package for free.
Yeah.
So was it convenient for me? And I don't think at 50 I'm totally tech illiterate, but is it easier for me to use it than, let's say, my uncle who's 60 who's a baseball fan? Yeah, it is. And if this is the way to sport, you're talking the Padres are already on streaming only right now. The Rockies, I think, are going to be that way by the end of the year.
Wow.
There's a couple other teams like that. That's a problem.
That's a
major problem. And those teams are going to have to sell off more assets. What is surprise? You've already seen what the Padres have done. You're going to let Snell walk out the door. You're going to let Hader walk out the door. You've already traded Soto. Is Darvish next? Is
Machado or Tatis?
I don't know if Machado will be. I think Machado with the reconfigured contract he did last year.
Okay.
And you need somebody to keep people in the door. Tatis, it'll be fascinating to see because I thought Tatis kind of earned some of that back, some of his goodwill back last year.
I agree with that.
So, but their guy's going to be available
at
the deadline. You've already seen them get rid of Trent Grisham. So if that's the case, then Phillies are in a pretty good spot to go scooping up. And I think we all kind of love the offseason sizzle when it happens. One, there's no sizzle this offseason at all in the sport. And two, sometimes it's the deadline move that really makes the difference and not.
Agreed. Totally agree with you. That's why I'm not upset about the offseason at all, because I always look further into, because by July, you know what you have. That's when you go out, and that's when the good GMs or the good baseball ops like Dave Dombrowski, that's their time to shine, is who can you bring in here that's going to make a huge difference.
Biggest problem with Matt Klentak and Ed Wade was the fact he didn't make good deadline deals.
Yeah. Agreed.
And so, again, I don't panic over. I rather have an incomplete team in March and April than I would in August, and I think the Phillies are probably following that model.
Your lips to God's ears, my friend. Last two questions here I got for you. What are you?
Wow, no Hall of Fame questions. I'm stunned.
Oh, Hold on. That was going to be the wild card at the end.
All
like,
right.
This
is going to be an Anthony Rollins one, isn't it, too?
Of course it is. Look, I already got my way last year when after 10 years of saying it that Scott Rowland finally gets in the Hall of Fame because he is a Hall of Famer. And so what are you looking at from an extension aspect of Wheeler? Because this is really tricky to me. He's 33. I think he's going to be 34. What do you give him? Because he definitely deserves a raise. He's making $23.5 million, I believe, this season. He's one of the top 5-6 pitchers in the world right now. I mean, what my biggest issue isn't the money. It's what kind of years are you giving this guy?
I would I give him 3 years. What's 335? 105?
Yeah. That's a good pay raise for
because well, it's a good pay raise, but it also I'll use the Pat Gillick line on somebody like Wheeler. The Pat Gillick line used to be, I'd rather pay you $100 million for 1 year than pay you $20 million over 6 years.
Right. That's great.
Because the idea of when I know it's done, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they'll deal in good faith with Wheeler. I think they know they've got a bargain with him.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking 3 at 30 each. I was thinking 90 over 3 years.
Yeah. I think they'll maybe give him a little bit more on a discount kind of deal, or not a discount, but like a reward for, hey, we know you outperformed your contract.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if it went 303, 105.
Okay. Hey, look, I love the guy, so I really hope that they get this done in spring training. Last question before we talk about the Hall of Fame. Are we going to have another season where Kyle Schwarber is the leadoff hitter? Do I prepare myself for this for another 162 where I'm battling people on Twitter about why this is just not wonderful?
Chris, I'm hoping I'll see Rob Thompson on Wednesday night. I'm at the Philly Sports Writer Banquet.
Please talk to him for me. Put me on a Zoom with him.
I guarantee you the answer. I guarantee you the answer he will give will be, look at our record with Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
Unless Schwarber's the one who goes and says he wants to move, I don't see Thompson moving.
All right.
I mean, look, perfect world, Stott or Turner, 1-2, fine. And you drop Schwarber down the 5th, be my guess. More RBIs, all that.
Kevin, he'd have 130 RBIs in the 4 or 5 hole. He would destroy, he would drive in. I mean, he had 103 RBIs something this year. If he's in the middle of that lineup, man.
Okay, so this has been an argument as old as time with the Phillies. Of if you hit X player in Citizens Bank Park or X player in this spot in the lineup, he'd have 140 RBIs. He'd be Hack Wilson. No, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. I don't know why with this organization it never does. Except your name is Ryan Howard. No, it doesn't happen.
Right.
I mean, even I'm trying to remember when Tommy hit 47 homers. I think he hit 100 and. All right, top of my head. Don't hold me to this. I'm thinking he had about 107 RBIs. Which, when you figure 147 homers, it's not a lot.
When he hit 47?
Yeah, 47 in 2003.
He had 131 RBIs.
Get out.
Yep. And the next year was 42 and 105.
Well, I knew there was a 3 in it.
But in the following year, like I said, he hit 42 and 105. So that might have been the year you're talking about.
Right.
But so he hit 131 the year before.
I mean, it depends on who's in front of you. It depends on, honestly, if you hit him behind Harper or you hit him behind, let's say Bohm's going to hit 4th.
Yeah. Maybe 120, 125 RBIs.
I'd take 100.
Well, I mean, he got 100 in the leadoff position. That's what I'm saying. Like you add
and that's honestly where they will tell you.
Yeah.
It is not the same with a couple reasons. One, you don't have the pitcher hitting in front of you. So there's okay, you lead off once.
Yeah.
And there are RBI position available because the lineup constantly turns over more.
Mm-hmm. All right. Look, it just drives me crazy because
I
I'm
know it does.
an old school baseball guy, and when I see Bryson Stott and Trey Turner in the lineup, and I see Schwarber
hate seeing
hitting
that many strikeouts out of my leadoff spot. I do, but
Yep.
I also, is the goal to win or is the goal to post numbers?
To win, hands down.
And that's what they would tell you.
Yeah. You're right. All right. I won't complain about it until mid-April.
Don't complain about April 5th. Who are you kidding?
You'll get a really.
I mean, and everybody will.
Yeah.
And I'll and I'll probably get to about April 20th and think of, man, why are we still doing Schwarber in the leadoff spot?
Right.
And then Tom, the interesting story for this year is if Topper gets off to another slow start.
Oh. That's that's a topic for another day.
Well, no, and I only say that because I'm not saying he should get fired or anything. I'm not saying that, but I also do believe that they know there's a limited window here.
Yeah, for sure. What's this window, you think? 2 more years? 3 max?
Well, all right, you get Schwarber for 2.
You have JT
you have
this year and next
pitchers,
year,
which in theory will give you, and you're getting some youth, but yeah, I mean, maybe 2 really heavy contention years before you have to re-examine.
Yeah. All right. Now, this is what I've been waiting for the entire time. I want to talk about the Hall of Fame because I think like 38% of the ballots were posted a couple days ago, and I believe at the time Utley was at 46%, almost just about 47% on the ballot, and I believe Rollins is in the mid-20s, maybe. What am I missing here, Kevin? Where if for some reason I don't think Utley's going to get in this year, but when he
he has a good progress. He has a
very good progress, so he might get in. And he will become, I think, the first player since what you might know, 1964, that Major League Baseball, the Baseball Hall of Fame inducted with less than 2,000 hits.
First one in the expansion age. Would be from Raiders votes.
Right. Okay.
It would be on the Raiders vote. There have been, if I'm not mistaken, oh God, the guy with the pirate, Bill Mazeroski. I don't think had 2,000 hits.
Okay.
Why? Look, the voting base has changed, and it has changed to more of an analytic, war-dominated base, and they are looking at the prime years as opposed to the years of the counting numbers.
All right,
and Utley does very well in that. I mean, he does.
Oh yeah,
and I voted for Chase, and I got to say, Chase was my hardest one to vote on, and it was part of a self-examination on my part of do the counting numbers matter? Do the sabermetric matter? And you almost hate saying like personal bias.
Okay.
I mean, I saw most of Utley's career before he went to LA.
Yeah.
Up close and personal. And he was a great leader in a sense of he was a lead by example guy.
For sure.
His moments on some of the biggest stages were great. Not everyone. I think that's one misconception that people have on Utley. For as great as he was in like the 2009 playoffs, in the 2010 LCS, he was awful. And he didn't get nearly the criticism of Ryan Howard did in that series. And Howard actually got his team an average.
Yeah. Don't get me started with
so
that appreciation comparison.
Utley, I think, is just trending at the right time.
Yeah.
I compared him in a different way
Okay.
to Don Mattingly.
All right.
Because Don Mattingly's prime was super awesome,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But was that prime long enough? And I had wrestled with it, and I felt like I gave the benefit of the doubt to Utley, maybe more than I if Utley played, and I will readily admit it, if I didn't see Utley every day, would I have voted for him? Probably not.
And I look at Utley. He had like you said, it's those stretches, right? So, I mean, for a 4-year stretch, other than Robinson Cano, he was probably, I mean, he was the best second baseman in the world. Not defensively, but I look at a guy
That's
like,
one area that gets misconstrued a lot.
and what, from a defensive point?
Yeah, he was not a great defender.
No, he was not. No, right. Like how Jeter was an okay defender. He just was one of the best hitters ever.
And clutch.
Very much so, correct. And winning 5 championships helps too. So, but I look at like Don Mattingly, correct. And I look at like a Don Mattingly. He has an MVP. He has 9 Gold Gloves. He's a 6-time All-Star. He has a batting title. Other than Silver Sluggers, Chase doesn't have anything. I mean, Jimmy MVP, Silver Slugger, Gold Gloves, 24, just about almost 2,500 hits. And I always look at what were you at your position in your era. And in my opinion, personally, because I got to watch every single day of Jimmy Rollins' career, just like you did, you had the ability. You got to watch, guys like Mike Schmidt for the majority of their whole career. I believe, in my opinion, defensively, maybe even overall, other than Derek Jeter in that era, Jimmy was maybe the best shortstop in baseball.
Well, there's also an easy comparison in my mind to a guy who's in Barry Larkin. Now, if you're telling me Barry Larkin's not a Hall of Famer and not going to, then you don't vote for Jimmy Rollins. But Barry Larkin made the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're telling me Barry Larkin's in, Jimmy's numbers are comparable in a lot of cases, and I'll make the argument Jimmy was a far superior defender than Barry Larkin was.
He also has more hits and home runs than Larkin.
Yeah, his on base, his what hurts him is the on base percentage and the average.
Yeah, I mean Barry Larkin had like a 370 OBP career. It's really good.
But it's also at a point right now where I can't. Again, having seen Jimmy up close, I knew what he did for that team. He was the swagger. He was the guy who got them to that level of a strut, a little bit of a puffing of the chest, you know?
Yeah.
And, I to me, none of that happens without Jimmy. None of what happened with the Phillies happens without Jimmy.
No.
Now, you can make the argument that it doesn't happen without Chase either, but Chase was different.
Yeah.
Chase, we talked about, guys who were willing to get up in other guys' face or say something that wasn't Chase.
No.
That was Jimmy.
It was. So I saw it. You've seen it.
Say one thing that I'm amazed by about Jimmy being at 14%. And I think he'll probably end up around 18 to 19 once the final votes are in. Okay. I think he'll have a bump. I don't think that he'll have a slight bump, but he's not on the way to he's not on the way to a huge leap, which I'm surprised by. I am stunned by the fact that one of the things that tends to happen is guys who work in the media tend to get a bump.
And he's working in the media, right? He's a TBS
media. And Jimmy was always a guy that if you really needed him was a great quote. There were times when Jimmy could walk away from guys but it shouldn't be that way, but it does play into how some people operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm surprised that Jimmy's availability hasn't helped him in this spot.
Hmm.
And to be honest, and I'll say this to be frank, I as this is my 8th year as a Hall of Fame voter. Or actually no, this is 9 now. I wish the Phillies would be doing more to promote both of them.
I agree. That's a great point. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, man, the Phillies aren't doing a whole thing of pushing this at all.
Like I can tell you, the Cincinnati Reds, the Rockies, a couple franchises would every year send a 4-year consideration thing to me as a voter,
Wow.
with
Hmm.
points, with strong anecdotes, whatever. And the Phillies haven't done it. And
Interesting.
I don't know why. Jimmy still technically works for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Chase works for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they pushed a little on Scott Rowland a
Yep.
couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should do the same for Jimmy and Chase, especially if Jimmy ends up at 12%. You really have to do it next year, or he is going to be in danger eventually of falling off the ballot.
What do you think is keeping him so low? Like that's my issue. Look, if he was at 35, 40, 45%, I'd be like, okay, look, in a couple years, there's a chance. But I'm thinking,
He's
what's
got no
keeping
prayer
him?
right now. No, his
That-
best
that-
prayer is the Veterans Committee or
yeah,
whatever they call it these days.
yeah. And that's what, after 15 years on the ballot, right?
10.
10 years, that's right, 10.
So
So after 10 years.
we're in year 3 of Jimmy. So
And he's not moving.
he's not really hit a bit of a. And I also wonder, because the bulk of the votes are not the bulk. I shouldn't say, but there's a large segment of voters from New York.
Oh. Interesting.
And the New York chapter tends to be very loud on who they feel are appropriate. And
Mm,
Chase, they always view Chase as the guy who really stirred the drink, Utley Corner, all that. I don't think they realized that Jimmy was as important as he was.
yeah. Like you said, they're up there. They didn't get to watch him every single day. Like we got to see Utley every day. We got to see Jimmy every day. I
And
mean,
look, and I wish Ryan Howard was still on the ballot.
yeah.
I mean, I didn't vote for Howard because of the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But should Ryan Howard have been able to be re-examined year after year? Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I mean, again, I could talk about this all day, but look, I am happy to see it looks like Todd Helton's going to get in, and I'm really thrilled about that.
He was a tough call because of the course thing, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it's astonishing that Andrew Jones isn't getting a significantly bigger jump through. I mean, again, through 40% of the balance. I mean, that's one of the best defensive players maybe the best defensive outfielder I've ever seen was Andrew Jones.
It's funny, and this is the problem with the way it is now, is when you have people who go strictly analytics and when you have people who go strictly by traditional numbers, it makes that barrier because you're not always going to see eye to eye.
No, you're right.
And it makes that 75% very difficult to get to.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I'm a consistent Billy Wagner voter, and I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten some heat over the years because I started voting for Billy Wagner when he was at like 8 or 9,
Wow.
and he built up, and he's on that borderline. I don't think he gets in this year, but I think he's going to be close enough where next year it probably takes a leap.
He's the best left-handed closer ever.
Meanwhile, Francisco Rodriguez, who has comparable numbers in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
is at what, 9%, 10%?
Yep.
Like, it's just a very mixed.
Yeah.
Form.
And why is that? I mean, we're all looking at the same numbers.
I think there's just the personal.
I see.
I think there's people who believe you shouldn't overload the hall. Which I get. I mean,
I get.
I vote for 9 or 10 every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I feel like, oh, I'm just taking the top 10 and here we go.
Oh, for sure.
And I look over it and all that. But I will admit, the last couple of years, like I haven't had anybody on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they're, if you're voting one in, you should be voting another.
Yeah.
And, you know, you and I have talked about the steroid guys in the past. Like I have people who freak out because I don't vote for A-Rod or Manny, and it's pretty simple why. And I've explained to you.
Yeah.
I don't vote for them because they failed tests that had punishments.
Mm-hmm.
They saw the sport get dragged through the mud with ramifications.
Yeah. There were multiple
offenders.
They were multiple, offenders, not just one. They knew it. Yeah.
They saw the sport get dragged before Congress and didn't give a damn.
Right.
This isn't Bonds and Clemens and whoever
McGuire.
else you want to lump in it. Sheffield.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. A gray area. Legally, was it wrong? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know.
Yeah. Right.
This is different. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this is what makes the Hall of Fame. Look, you're a hockey fan. We both follow football and everything.
Yep.
The Hall of Fame debate in baseball is the best thing and the worst thing in sports at the same time.
You're not,
because everybody's opinion is so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other part of it is the fact that we don't have a set standard. And to be honest, the Hall is partly to blame for that too.
Agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're not absolved of blame of that at all.
No.
So yeah, it's
especially, and I'll say this before I'm assuming we're wrapping this topic up. I'll say this because they complicated matters by putting Selig, LaRussa, Torrey in, who are stewards of the game, who knew what was going on.
Yep.
And they didn't give a damn. They didn't punish them in any way, even though they benefited the same way players did.
Especially Selig. I mean, he was like,
it was such a political thing. It was like, it was awful.
I agree. Kevin, I want to thank you so much, man, for giving us this time. Anytime I get a chance to talk to you, it's the highlight of my week. What do you got coming up, man? When you on the air again?
I'm on the air Sunday night, 7 to 10. I think I'm on again 9 to noon next Saturday too. And you know, I'll bounce around. I'll do a couple Flyers. I'll do a couple Sixer games in here, and you know, wait till the boys get back from Clearwater. At this point,
can't wait, man. I just can't wait. It's gonna be great.
You know, it's funny. This is around the time of year I get the itch.
Yep.
And I think we all, especially if the football team goes out this week, I think everybody by the end of next week will really have the itch of, okay, where do they go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an Eagles town, but the Phillies are still
number
1A.
2. Oh, 1A for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you know, the Sixers are its own nice little topic, and the Flyers have surprised people. Yep. I haven't even looked in to see how they're doing tonight. Yeah, it's a football town, but the baseball still runs through the veins.
Agreed. Philly Flyers are winning 2-0 in the third period. So, yeah. Look. I
feel peacock for that. So.
Yes, I feel bad for you though, Kevin, being on the air because there's not too much to talk about. So you know.
This morning was fish on a barrel, man. It was awesome. You know how this works.
Yep.
You make fun of the head coach, you throw open the lines, and away we go.
Away we go. Just open the lines.
Just open the lines. Let's get back to the Eagles.
That used to be my favorite part of answering the phones when I was a producer. It's like, okay, I know what you want to talk about, but exactly what? Hold on. We'll get you on. we know already.
My favorite call of the day was I had a guy call in and say, why is everybody giving up on this team? I'm like, because they gave up on themselves.
Yeah.
Well, you know, how do we know all this stuff's true? Well, let's see, McLean, Berman, all those guys. Yeah, sure, they're going to just make stuff up.
Yeah.
All
Just,
together.
just like for forever, everyone thought McLean made up everything about Wentz. That worked,
San Loquido got roasted.
That too. Yeah.
I mean, and look, I'll raise my hand. I didn't think Joe handled it exactly the best.
Mm-hmm.
I felt he should have given a little more heads up.
Oh, for sure.
To the Eagles before he published it, but I also kind of understand that he's afraid that if he gives too much heads up, it ends up in somebody else's story. So
for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
At Kevin Cooney on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But yeah, at Kevin Cooney. Thanks so much, man. I really do appreciate it.
Anytime, Chris.
Hope to talk to you again during spring training and throughout the season. Whenever, of course, you have time.
Whenever you need me, as long as school doesn't get in the way.
Absolutely. All right, this has been the Ring the Bell Show, a special here on Saturday night, and we'll catch you guys down the road. Have a great rest of your weekend. And if you're an Eagles fan, I guess go Birds, right? All right, see you.